I have here an iPhone X and my Nikon D810, a full-frame DSLR. I took a few portraits with each of these today here in Snapchick HQ. This isn't a which is better comparison, but Apple has made some big claims about portrait mode in their new phones. So today I will show you a few photos using it and also a few photos using this DSLR so you can see the difference. To start, DSLRs and these days even their full frame and cropped sensor mirrorless counterparts are the gold standard when it comes to photography. You can capture fast action, crisp and vibrant landscapes, and what we'll talk about today, portraits where the subject is in focus but the background is blurred out behind them. The idea of portrait mode on the newer iPhones is that you can achieve that effect without your big DSLR. And it doesn't do a bad job. I've been using this phone for almost a week now, and I've been impressed with the smarts in this little guy. This morning, I was at the vet with my cat, and I took our photo in the office. I mean, I'm not about to bring my DSLR when I'm also juggling my ornery cat, but I sure had my phone with me, and this isn't a bad photo. The background is blurred out, so Leroy Brown and I stand out. So back here in my studio, I got the idea to take a few photos with portrait mode on the iPhone X and a few with my Nikon D810 and the 24-70 f2.8 lens so that I could share with you the difference. I mimicked the field of view and the distance between the subject and the camera. I used a wide aperture on the D810 to get that shallow depth of field, and I used window light only with both of them. And here's what I came up with. The first thing I notice is the different color temperature and the slightly different exposure. The phone is always going to try for an evenly bright exposure across the frame, where the DSLR is going to be a little bit more conservative with the brightness. As for color temperature, every camera is going to measure that slightly differently. Both of these cameras were automatically picking a white balance. Putting these two things aside, what I really wanted to look at was the actual portrait effect. And you can definitely see that the backgrounds are both blurry. If we look back here at my Frida Kahlo doll, she's surely fuzzy in both images, probably more so with the DSLR. I wanted to know what would happen if I put something in front of me, so I just put my hands up for a shot with each, keeping the camera focused on my face. As expected with the DSLR, my hands are outside of the depth of field and are blurry, but with the phone, whose shallow depth of field is simulated with software, my hands remain in focus. This one was a little bit difficult for me to determine because portrait mode also smooths skin tones, but it seems that my hands are as crisp as my face here. But you can see that both cameras achieved the outcome of bringing attention to me as the subject by blurring the background elements. This worked here in my office with me as a subject, and it worked in my veterinarian's office with my cat and I. It got interesting when I was out in the desert earlier this week using a cactus as my subject. I liked using portrait mode, but you don't have a ton of control. For example, here the phone chose to blur out the spines that would have been sticking up off the cactus pad. With the DSLR, you would have much greater control over what was in focus and what was out of focus. Now, I'm not suggesting that anyone replace their DSLR with their phone. There's a ton of options here that you just won't get here. But what I am suggesting is that this can be a good and, dare I say, fun tool for even you seasoned photographers out there. Personally, I'm not leaving my DSLR at home for my photography jobs, but I am getting better photos in places like the veterinarian's office or when I was out trail running in the desert without my big camera bag. This was a fun exercise for me, and I didn't even touch on the new portrait lighting effects that I have available to me in this new phone. I think an outdoor test is in order too, so I will work on that next week. So make sure that you subscribe to my channel if you want to see more comparisons. Also, if you are a Snapchick VIP or a Patreon patron, make sure that you check out the video at the link in the description down below. I posted it earlier today, and I am asking for your input on where I should take my DSLRs to next on my next grand adventure.